All right, now G20 Sherpas are finalising the agenda for this weekend's Leaders Summit, covering the global economy, climate change and artificial intelligence. South Africa has also hosted side events, including meetings with African leaders and a renewable energy pledging event. Officials say the country's G20 chairmanship has made a real impact. Qaanitah Hunter joins us for a little bit more on this story. Qaanitah, thank you so much for the time. We're going to have another discussion a little bit later with the association and how it's worked with Africa. But let's talk about the legacy South Africa is looking to put forward off the back of what is a very important and significant event, but one that has also had a lot of tumultuous interplay, one might add.
Yeah, South Africa is thinking of the word ambitious when it comes to that final declaration that is under negotiation as we speak. Sherpas, which are negotiators, DGs from the various countries, are meeting in Johannesburg and have been since Sunday to negotiate line by line as to what the outcomes will be. Remember, there's been 130 meetings, 3 more to happen. That sort of culminates South Africa's presidency of the G20. Now, when it comes to the legacy, South Africa focused its attention on 3 main areas: overhauling or looking at overhauling the global economic infrastructure and what that means for the African continent. South Africa being the first African nation to be part of and to chair the G20 had to use the occasion to push the conversation beyond our borders and to the rest of the continent. The second focus has obviously been around the future of work, artificial intelligence, tech. And there's been a lot of technological initiatives that are part of South Africa's legacy, which include the AI Initiative for Africa, a technology policy assistance facility. Then the conversation, the second phase of discussions when the leaders meet, will be around climate change, about resilience. And there's going to be, some affirmation to South Africa's pushing an agenda here in the conversations around climate action, which is the G20 Clean Cooking Legacy Program, Africa Energy Efficiency Facility. These are all processes, conversations, initiatives that South Africa cheered and pushed ahead in this last year. And then there's obviously the final discussions around rare minerals, artificial intelligence. These are important conversations as the global economy is disrupted in so many ways. Now, yesterday, the conversation was around the final declaration, Arabella, because in the absence of the US, if South Africa, the legacy of South Africa will be culminate in this final declaration of the Leaders Summit presented by President Cyril Ramaphosa. But there has to be consensus from all the countries on this declaration. The US said, we're not here, there's no declaration, and obviously their proxies would have pushed the same thing. But Ronald Lamola affirming that South Africa will deliver a declaration. And yesterday we heard from the French authorities, and they saying they will support South Africa's declaration of the summit, and they labelled South Africa's presidency and the programs that it championed as ambitious as well.
That's very fascinating, actually, just considering, as you made note of, the proxies and some of the other leaders who may actually not be here, whether it be from Saudi Arabia, possibly the big question marks there. Russia's Vladimir Putin and Sergei Lavrov both said to, of course, not be in attendance. Xi Jinping might not attend. We have Javier Milei out of Argentina, etc., and even Mexico's old Claudia Sheinbaum. So many question marks, as you made note of there. So very significant move there. Just very quickly as well, if we're looking at just the side meetings that we've had, there's so many little meetings. You said 130 so far. Let's just talk about those side events very quickly, if we may.
So outside of the G20 ecosystem, in the G20 ecosystem, we know there's a social summit, then there would be, the official leaders summit. But because there's going to be the convergence of heads of states and representatives from some 42 countries across the world, as well as 6 regional bodies, there's going to be very, very important multilateral conversations. For example, the leaders of IBSA, India, Brazil, South Africa, are going to be meeting. There will be the Global Fund's Aid Replenishment meeting. You know, the Global Fund that was set up in terms of dealing with poverty. A high-level renewable energy pledging event. So South Africa really taking this opportunity of all of these world leaders converging here in Johannesburg to sort of steer global conversations. There's going to be a meeting on disaster risk management. What I'm particularly interested in is the African Heads of State meeting, which is an important one, and a special South African EU summit. Again, given the shifts globally with the US, all of these meetings are South Africa's efforts to assert itself in the geopolitical stage and not to be sidetracked by what is alleged to be the US efforts to derail South Africa and its chairing of the G20.
That's going to be a big part of the conversation, really, to ask ourselves, where exactly do they lie in that regard? Qaanitah, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. We're still going to follow on this conversation a little bit later on, just around 7:40, to get a clear sense of South Africa and the G20 and that relationship.